And with a 5-2 win, the St. Louis Blues force a Game 7 in round 1. Let's talk more about it.
Hey, this is Braden Shen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The St. Louis Blues had a dominant 5-2 win over the Winnipeg Jets, and now they force a Game 7 in Winnipeg. No away team has won a game in this series, and this is the first time that the Jets will be actually hosting a Game 7. So there is a lot of storylines and drama, but I cannot wait to talk to all of you about tonight's game and the dominant display the Blues had in the second frame, because that for me was a phenomenal 20 minutes of play. But before I get into all of that, I just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV. Locked On to learn more. I hope everybody is doing well on this Friday night, almost Saturday. Friday night, late night here, Saturday. Friday. Oh my gosh, see how flustered I am? The Blues won! First off, that is my excitement. The Blues won. I am so pumped up. After how the Blues played in Game 5 in Winnipeg, I was a little bit concerned. That team had no life to them, no juice whatsoever. But tonight, you could tell that this team was fired up. And I have to give credit to all of the fans at Enterprise. It was loud tonight. It was electric tonight. And I was listening to the broadcast, and there was points where I couldn't even hear the broadcast due to how loud all the fans were. But the Blues off the bat showed great dominance. And I want to give a shout out to a former Edmonton Oiler because we noticed a tendency of a couple former Edmonton Oilers. But that was Philip Broberg, who started off the scoring tonight for the Blues. It was a great feed from Thomas. But I want to also point out that Jimmy Snugger got the secondary assist, and that was the only goal that was scored in the first frame. However, there was a couple of penalties in the first frame. The Blues did have 2 power play opportunities. However, they did not capitalize on them. And then Jake Neighbors had an interference penalty, but luckily Winnipeg did not score. So for me, that was a positive. I feel like the Blues penalty kill unit actually has been looking good. It's funny how playoff hockey is so much different than regular season hockey. And this is a tendency that I noticed a lot when it comes to the playoffs, that teams maybe that you count out because they didn't have the best regular season shine bright in the playoffs. But continuing on to the second period, unfortunately, Winnipeg did score on their power play, and this was due to Nathan Walker slashing. And I say that because Dylan Sandberg, he basically dove onto the ice. Like, it was very embellished. Interesting word that I'm using with embellishment, right? Well, he didn't get called for that. But hey, in Game 5, the refs called Oscar Sundqvist for embellishment when his nose was literally bleeding. But we don't need to get into that right now because that to me was ridiculous. But that was embellishment. Luckily, the Aussie Nathan Walker was able to kind of get back on the ice and take care of business because he did not like that goal got scored due to his own fault, right? And he was able to score the Blues' second goal of the game, giving them a 2-1 lead. Well, not even a full minute later, Captain Braden Shen had such a beautiful slap shot, gets right in the net. And I also want to point out, too, that Ryan Suter got the secondary. I told you my boy Suits was going to get some points tonight, but this was his first assist of the playoffs. Well, not like ever, but in this series. And Braden Shen, that was one of my favorite goals I saw from him. Because here's the thing. Connor Hellebuck, once you get him a little bit flustered, right? He was flustered after that Nathan Walker goal 100%. Braden Shen had basically a wide open net and was able to get it right into the 5-hole, and boom, that puck went right in. So that was a great goal from Captain Braden Shen, making his presence known. Speaking of somebody else that made their presence known, Literally a minute later, after Shem's goal, was Cam Fowler picking up his second goal of this series and giving the Blues a 4-1 lead. Before the game today, it was a TNT broadcast. Biz said that he didn't feel like he saw enough from Cam Fowler in this series, and that annoyed me. I sometimes try to tune out these national broadcasters and national media guys. I like our guys, okay? I'm biased, but I like our local team. When Biz said that, that ticked me off because Cam Fowler has been playing phenomenal. First off, he was not supposed to be in the position that he is, okay, playing in the first pair, and I thought he had a great game tonight. I thought that he did good in this series so far. I mean, obviously, Game 5 was rough for the whole entire team. But again, let me know in the comments, since we are live right now, if you agree with what Biz said. Do you feel like Cam Fowler didn't really show you much in this series so far? Or do you think he is wrong? I think he is wrong. That is my own opinion, but I do not agree whatsoever with what Biz said about that one. So I'm glad that Cam was able to score. And then Alexei Turchenko scored the Blues' fifth goal of the game late in the second period, giving the Blues a 5-1 lead. Now, unfortunately, the Jets did score in the final frame, but overall, the Blues had most of the puck possession. They killed it on faceoffs, and they played a great hockey game. Now, again, do I think they played a great full 60 minutes? No. I think that's impossible for any team to play a great full 60 minutes. And what I'll say is this. If the Blues can play this way at home, fast, aggressive, hard-hitting, not afraid to take shots, then they can certainly do this on the road. And that is the problem that I'm a little bit nervous about, okay? I know this team is capable. They are so great at home. I believe that this is now their 15th straight home win. Think about that. 15th straight home win. And the Blues, they know that they were in Connor Hellebuck's head. I mean, I heard Blues fans chanting in the first period, Connor, right after Broberg's goal. And for Connor Hellebuck, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, people say he's one of the best goalies in the NHL. Well, in every single away game, he's had to get pulled before the final frame or getting pulled a minute into the final frame. And again, why would they keep him in at that point? Exactly. I don't know. That wouldn't make sense. But you have to think there's only one day in between tonight's game and then Sunday's game. There's not a lot of time. These other games, there's been more time, but I believe that the Blues and the Jets are actually the last game in round one. So it kind of pushes back some of the other games, I believe. So it is, in my opinion, a good situation for the Blues right now to come off of the game they had tonight. It wasn't a close game. There was a little bit of time in this game where I was like, oh, this is a little too close, after Winnipeg was able to tie it up early in the second. But the thing is, when Nathan Walker responded, he lit a spark under the Blues, okay? And Nathan Walker, I said this once and I'll say this again, is one of the most hardest working players on this team. And again, he scored 3 playoff goals now in his career, and he hasn't yet to score any playoff goals in his career. So the fact that he scored 3 already, with 2 in Game 5 and then obviously 1 tonight here in Game 6, says something to me that this guy is on fire. We saw a lot of hard hits from Oscar Sundqvist. Again, I am obsessed with Sonny. I think he is the definition of a St. Louis Blue. You also saw the brothers tonight going at it. You saw Luke and Braden kind of chirping at each other. Braden was kind of sitting on the bench, and Luke was starting off with Bushi, and Braden was yelling at him. He was mouthing some words that I cannot say on this podcast, or else I will get in trouble by my boss. But you can only imagine what was said. We're going to get way more into the games, but I am seeing all of your comments to the side, and I'm going to react to those. This is a reaction episode. Did I really think the Blues were going to have this much of a dominant win over the Winnipeg Jets? And the answer is, after Game 6, I was really unsure. I was a little bit nervous at the very beginning of the game. But I have to tell you, there was a point in tonight's game where I'm like, wow, the Blues, they're doing something special tonight. So before I get into some more thoughts and get into your thoughts about the game tonight, again, leave those comments so I will see them. I want to tell you about my friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports, College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and more. And you can easily stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV locked on to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller is required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Again, a 5-2 win tonight for our St. Louis Blues. And it is such a great feeling. It is Friday night. I just had an energy drink to get myself a little bit more amped up because I could not believe the blowout win the Blues essentially had. And it is so great seeing all of your comments as we're here live on YouTube here on Locked On Blues as we're doing a post-game reaction. Heading into tonight's game after Game 5, I have to tell you, I was a little bit on edge. I thought to myself, and I really did, this can't be the way that the Blues this season comes to an end. That was the first thought I had because the Blues had an excellent Game 3. They had an excellent Game 4, and then Game 5 was their worst game in this series. And for me, I thought Game 5 was going to be more of a motivating game for the Blues because if you won Game 5, you would be able to clinch in 6 here in St. Louis. Now, I know all along I said Blues in 6, and I stood by that. Obviously, that's impossible now, but I guess when I said Blues in 6, I should have meant the Blues are going to win Game 6 because that is what they did tonight, forcing a Game 7, which will be taking place on Star Wars Day, May 4th, also my cat's birthday. But anyways, in tonight's game, what I liked about the Blues, they were able to maintain good offensive zone time. And this is something that the Blues really did struggle with a lot in the very beginning of the contest tonight, actually. I want to say it was about the first 4-ish minutes where Winnipeg had most of the control. It looked like Winnipeg had most of the momentum. And then once Philip Broberg, about 6 minutes in, was able to get that goal, that's when I saw the Blues really take precedent over that offensive zone. And even the defense tonight, and I also want to say this too, I know that the defense sometimes is a little bit faulty. Listen, I'm the first to say it. When the Jets scored in this second frame on that power play, I was thinking to myself, Colton Parayko, what is your positioning? But I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to get the puck and go behind the net. Now, unfortunately, he couldn't connect with the puck, so that left for that to be a little bit open. But at the end of the day, the Blues were able to make a statement back. And again, that was like a very quick and fast power play goal that the Jets had. So the Blues didn't have much time on the PK with that, but it did go in. It is what it is. And again, this just shows you that, honestly, the focus and the dominance that Jordan Binnington has, because instead of overreacting and being flustered about that and getting maybe annoyed with his teammates, he just focused on what was in front of him. So for me, I am very happy about that. Mistakes happen. No player is going to play a perfect game. But I guess tonight, a player that played a hard game that I feel like maybe doesn't get enough credit, it's Foxa. I actually thought Foxa played pretty well tonight. I thought, it's funny. Foxa is one of those players that doesn't necessarily stand out. But when I was watching tonight's game, I take notes on every single Blues game, which is why I usually watch. And I do this during the regular season, if you don't know. I'll watch the game live, and then the next day before I do my episode, I watch it again and take more notes on it just so I can get a different perspective. Because I'm a fan. I get excited. I get anxious. I feel all the emotions that you feel, but I like to then think a little bit more logically once I know the outcome of the game. So I thought Fox, again, good positioning on his end. I thought he played aggressive, a lot of hard hits. Can't say anything bad about Fox. And it's funny. There's some players on this team that we don't give enough credit to. I thought Nick Leddy actually looked fine tonight. I don't think he looked bad, and same as Justin Folk. And again, I'm knocking on wood, if you could hear that. but I am hoping that some of these players that maybe had some issues in the regular season just continue to play the way they have in the playoffs. Yeah, Montgomery is so funny. Speaking of, he was not nominated for the Jack Adams, and I found that so disrespectful. Jim Montgomery turned the St. Louis Blues team around. And for me, being a Blues fan, obviously there's some bias, but then looking at this objectively, isn't the Jack Adams award, the Coach of the Year award, supposed to be for a coach that's supposed to do something special? When you have a team that's not in playoff contention, 8 points out of a second wild card, right? And then you go on this insane 12-game win streak, you would think that they would somehow get nominated, right? No. Well, I found that disrespectful. I found that insulting. And again, it just goes to show that Coach Montgomery is maybe tonight was like, hey, I'm going to show everybody how good of a coach I am. And that's exactly what he did. So Winnipeg actually did have an initial goal before they tied it. They had it actually 1-1 before, but that was waved off due to offsides. And in the playoffs, and I always have to remind myself, it's been a couple of years since we were in the playoffs, that they always review every single goal. But then I was cracking up because then Winnipeg called a timeout, and I'm like, oh, they're going to challenge this, even though it was very obvious that it was offsides, and they didn't challenge it. So then they wasted a timeout. Again, their coach was nominated for Coach of the Year, but not Coach Montgomery. Same as Connor Hellebuyck, the best goalie in the NHL. Meanwhile, you have Jordan Binnington making these insane saves. I need to come and edit a highlight reel of Jordan Binnington because again, some of the saves that he makes are unbelievable. But again, it's the disrespect that the Blues have. And that's why the comment that Biz had in the pregame show really bothered me. He said that Braden Shen had to step up more. Braden Shen has been one of the most physical players in this series. Braden Shen is our number one guy for the faceoff. If Biz watched maybe 20 minutes of Blues hockey, he would see that Braden Shen is a staple to this team, and he's been playing excellent. So that bothered me, number one. Number two, you're going to come at Cam Fowler, a player that stepped up big time. I mean, we got Cam from Anaheim, right? About 9 or so games. It might have been 7 before he got 1,000 games in the NHL. Scores 2 games in the Winter Classic during his 1,000th game, whatever. Point is, Cam Fowler is playing on the first pair alongside with Colton Parayko, and then Biz has the audacity to say, he hasn't done enough. What do you mean he hasn't done enough? So again, I was happy that he was able to get a goal tonight. And I didn't even listen to the post-game show with those clowns because this is the post-game show. Where a real Blues fan, believe it or not, is actually hyping up the Blues and isn't trying to make excuses for Winnipeg. And I feel like that is the number one thing that I am seeing from Jets fans. There's a bunch of excuses of, the Blues got a lot of good calls tonight. You have to understand, Winnipeg had plenty of time on the power play, okay? I know the penalty minutes, they always look high after the game because during the final frame, there's always the misconducts, all that stuff because, it gets a little chippy on the ice, right? But I look back and I'm like, wow, the Jets had about 6 minutes of power play time in the first 2 frames. They did score a power play goal, mind you. So they had plenty of opportunity, and the Blues only had 8 minutes. So again, when you take a look at that, the refs, by any means, were being the opposite of leaning towards the Blues. I mean, you think about how Nathan Walker had to go to the penalty box over the Jets player diving. And again, that to me really bothered me that Dylan Sandberg dove on the ice like he did. That's what embellishment is. Embellishment isn't holding your face when you get elbowed in the face and your nose is bleeding like Oscar Sundqvist got in Game 5. That to me is bias. What happened tonight was not cool, and I did not like it. But luckily, the Blues responded. But this was an elimination game for St. Louis. And there is a lot on the line for the Blues this Sunday. I mean, I don't want to say it, and this is the reality. As good as tonight's game was, am I wrong to be concerned about how the Blues are going to play on the road? I mean, let's face it. When you have a series where no road team has won, you have to think, well, is it actually destined to happen? Or is this going to be like one of those fluky series where the home team always wins? So we're going to talk about that coming up. Again, leave your comments. We're going to respond to those. We have a lot to still talk about on today's episode of Locked On Blues. But first, I want to talk to my friends over at Gametime. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's next level. And thanks to Gametime, getting in the doors is even easier and more affordable than ever. Gametime is actually the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually drop as the puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. Personally, I love the last-minute deals. Saving up to 60% for buying last-minute tickets for playoff hockey is something that you're not going to get anywhere else. Gametime also has their all-in pricing, so it shows the total cost up front, so you're not surprised at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Before I go into my final segment, I just want to say this out loud. I bought a new computer today because my old laptop that I used to film actually died in a glitch, and it was a whole thing. And my first thought was, because I can always watch the Blues on my TV or an iPad, whatever, but my first thought was, I need to make sure I can record an episode of Locked On Blues to talk to all of you about tonight's game. So I'm still trying to figure out this new computer, so I'm sorry if there's any bit of slowness. But anyways, let's get back into tonight's contest. Again, I'm seeing all of your comments right now. And here's the thing. I understand that the Blues are underdogs, and I'm seeing some of those comments right now. The Blues are underdogs. I get that. But at the same time, the Blues have 5 active players on the roster that won the Stanley Cup with the team back in 2019. The Blues also have a goalie in Jordan Binnington, who I believe is one of the top 7 elite goalies in the NHL right now. I know 7's a weird list, but again, when we do our off-season talk, I'll talk more about why I think that. And for me, do I want to see more out of Robert Thomas? Do I want to see more out of Jordan Kyrou? Yeah, I do. Jake Neighbors, yes, him too. But I feel like the fourth line has just been our best line. And for me, that kind of is a little bit mind-blowing because in the regular season, while the fourth line I thought was, I would say probably on par with the second line, I'm a little surprised at how dominant the fourth line is against the President Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets. But again, when you have somebody working as hard as Nathan Walker, any line's going to be good. And this is something, and I'm glad Army of 12 years old said this. Refs need to call penalties both ways in Game 7. And I agree. And that's what I'm thinking about with Game 7 is it has to be fair. You can't go one way. You can't go another way. And in Game 5, we saw a display of bias. We saw a bias towards Winnipeg. Again, that Oscar Sundqvist embellishment call to me was ridiculous. And again, I'm not making excuses. The Blues didn't play good hockey that game. That was their worst game that they played in the series. However, the refs can't be doing that. You have a job that is to be neutral, that's to be fair, that's to make the calls what you see on the ice. And if you're just kind of coming up with conspiracies about players embellishing an injury, that's not you doing your job. That is you having then an opinion rather than making a factual call. Okay, here's the thing. Jordan Binnington is made for these moments. You saw him at the Four Nations face-offs in the finals, and it's so funny because Connor Hellebuyck was on the opposite end of the ice, because he was the goalie for Team USA who lost to Team Canada. But like Jordan Binnington, I think back to Game 7 in TD Garden when the Blues won the Cup. Like there's something about him in these high leverage situations that just brings me like confidence. It does. It's like a calming confidence because that's how I feel when I watch Jordan Binnington play. I know that he is made for these moments. He doesn't get too in his head. When I spoke to Jordan Binnington, he told me that this is something that he's trying to teach the young Joel Hofer. So again, I have said this all season on this podcast. about the disrespect towards Jordan Binnington because people say he's so emotional. Tonight, there was a couple of Jets players that hit into him. And instead of reacting and getting emotional, he just stood there. And that is the growth and maturity that I am seeing from Jordan Binnington. Again, we can argue, and I'm going to agree with you on Sandberg for not being called for embellishment because that was embellishment. Edward, that is true. Back in the day, the fourth line was a checking line. That is true. And that's what they do. And I love seeing that. Like, again, Nathan Walker isn't the biggest guy in the locker room, but he isn't afraid to make those hits. I am happy. Listen, I am extremely happy right now. When your team, who hasn't been in the playoffs in 2 seasons, forces the best team in the NHL to a Game 7, it's a pretty cool feeling to have. And for me, this Game 7, I'm already anxious for it, okay? I'm excited about tonight, but I'm already anxious for Game 7 because I just know that this Game 7 is not going to be easy. But again, I really do think the Blues have to just act like they're an enterprise when they're in Winnipeg, okay? They can do this. They can beat this team. I have confidence. It's not that I don't. It's just very fluky how the Blues have played some of their worst games of the season. Of the series in Winnipeg, but yet they look like a whole different team at home. That to me is what's crazy. Like, these wins at home, they've been blowout wins. It hasn't been a 1-goal win. So they need to go into the mentality that they're just playing at home. I see all of your comments, the excitement, everything. Wow. It's really awesome to see everybody just completely on cloud 9 right now. Yeah, because Coach Montgomery should have had the Jack Adams, and I'm going to go stand on that hill. I like this comment from Darkness. Darkness has been a long time everydayer of Locked On Blues, so thank you. Great win regardless of what happens in Game 7. The Blues put a statement back to the league in the series, and that we are indeed back. I also want to say, besides the Blues putting out a statement, Snuggard put out a statement. The young Jimmy Snuggard, 20 years old, he had a great shot on the Blues' first power play, the only shot on the power play, but he has been such a presence in this series. And it's just so crazy for me to think that Snuggie gets, brought to the Blues with a couple of games left in the regular season, and now he's been a huge factor in the playoffs so far. So he's going to be a star for this team, and I'm really excited to see him grow. But again, I just want to see more out of Kyrou, of Thomas. I just want to see more out of them, and I know that they can do it. But yeah, no, it's a really cool atmosphere that we have here in St. Louis, and I feel very good about the Blues. So I'm going to change my Blues to 6 because the Blues won Game 6, so I guess that was somewhat true. But I'm going to say Blues in 7. I believe in this team. I love this team, and I trust our starting goalie. I trust Jordan Binnington. I have all the faith in Binner. I have all the faith in the guys. And I know that we don't have Dylan Holloway, and that's something that we don't really talk about a lot, especially in these past couple of episodes. But imagine if Holloway was here. And I think about that. Just imagine the impact he would have. But again, we can't think that way. Hopefully, if the Blues advance, he'll somewhat make a return, or maybe we'll hear a statement. I don't know. We haven't heard anything. I get the media emails, and there's absolutely nothing on Dylan Holloway. But again, it was a fun episode today. I love doing these reaction episodes. I'm going to do a short or something to talk to you tomorrow. I live tweet during the playoff games. So again, make sure to check out here on Locked On Blues. Yeah, and I don't want to be negative. I don't. A couple bad passes from Kyrou tonight that ended up being turnovers. I'm seeing some of your comments about him. I am not trying to pick on Jordan Kyrou really fast. That is not what I'm trying to do. It's because I like Jordan Kyrou. I want to see him show his dominance, show his skill set. And that's what frustrates me. It's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of hate. I truly, truly, truly just want to see him shine. So I will talk to you all tomorrow at some point, but enjoy tonight. A great 5-2 victory for our St. Louis Blues. And like always, let's go Blues.